please um, put your questions in the chat. What I will be able to do is keep a record of those, and if I don't get to every question, I'll put it into the frequently asked questions document that was started. A few people put some good questions in there, and then that will be an opportunity for me to provide families with information. Tonight we're going to talk about a few big ideas, just our return to school plan, and we're going to capture all of that in your student's day and give you a sense of what your students will be experiencing when they come every day. So thank you very much for being here. So thinking about our year, I mean, our goals are consistent to every year. Thinking about what I wanted to share with everybody, I mean, our goals remain the same. We want to keep everybody who's coming to school every day safe, because there are community implications. If we take care of each other, we can be safe in school, and then we can help keep all of you safe as well. And then, as always, our goal is to make sure our students are academically and social emotionally successful. And if anything, the past year and a half has taught us is we're going to have to be flexible. So we already can see that things might be changing, so we'll just adapt and grow with those. So we're going to be talking about your student's day, and these are a few of the bigger areas. If we don't touch upon everything, this isn't meant to be comprehensive. It's meant to give you some really overarching ideas about what your students are going to be like and how you can support that. So as you know, the Ledyard Public Schools has committed to ensure each and every student's success, and especially reflecting on the impact on the pandemic on your children's academic and or social emotional development. So this year is a change in the daily schedule. So our day is going to start at 8:10. And it's going to run to 3:25, and some parts of the day that we are especially highlighting now that the day is extended is a community time, and this is a time for classrooms to build community, to build our students' social, emotional, their self-regulatory skills through a number of programs that help students develop more than just academic skills. And then we've also added a section of our day that includes 2 online programs, Lexia and Dreambox. Lexia is primarily about building literacy skills at each grade level, each grade band, and then Dreambox is kind of the math component of that. And the beauty of those is it's individualized instruction and individualized practice for each and every student. So it's really specific to them. It's computer adaptive. It gives assessment data, real-time data that teachers can use. It gives real-time feedback. So we're going to use them as really valuable tools to make sure that there's no gaps in your students' learning, in addition to all of our regular curriculum. And there's a link in this presentation that will take you to this year's school year calendar. This presentation, the video, and then the frequently asked questions will be shared out through our school messenger app by tomorrow morning with everybody. So, you can use the presentation as a way to get back through any of the resources that I refer to tonight. So I'm going to be talking about routines and daily operations in our school as interconnected and integrated with our Safe Return to School plan. School districts across Connecticut and across the country were directed by the federal government and the state government to come up with a return to school plan. This year it's a little bit different. Last year we had an umbrella district plan, and then schools came up with site-based plans, and this year we have an overarching plan, which is just the Ledric Public Schools. You can read that at the district page. It's also linked here. Something really to highlight and to be upfront, and I'm going to circle back to this in a couple places in this presentation. Something that's significant from last year is the state of Connecticut has directed school districts to not offer virtual and or remote or opt-out experiences for families and students. So last year, because of the pandemic, it was our obligation to offer opt-out and then synchronous virtual instruction for students, whether they were remote learners during our hybrid schedule or if they were in quarantine/isolation. This year, that it is not permissible by the state of Connecticut. So that's a big shift for us and families have had to adjust to that. We see no change at this time. And I'm going to come back to that when we talk about, communication from school, classroom, and quarantine and isolation situations. So just to give you a sense about the school day, and some of the pieces of our plan that we think are important to highlight is that the district is continuing to have masks at all times inside for adults and students. When students are on the bus, they have to be masked at all times. So any of those transportation time students need to be masked at all times. The district is having masks off outside at recess. The exceptions for that, and I'm going to come back to this again to stress this point, is, the Department of Public Health guides the state and the district to say that information that we have is that students can be unmasked outside except within contained areas. And an example of that would be the sandbox at Gales Ferry. That's primarily a 12 by 12 enclosed space where the students are sitting next to each other for extended periods of time. So that the sandbox and the Gaga pit will be areas that we're going to have students wear masks. All others, they're going to be off. Our students and our staff did an extremely admirable job last year wearing masks. I think one of the concerns going into the 2020-21 school year was the question, for example, are kindergarten students going to be able to wear masks all day long? And we had very few instances where students did not want to wear masks. So our students understand, because we made this part of our daily routines, because families and parents supported it. So it's something that we all adopted to. And another important part of the day that we just adjusted to is we're going to continue with hand washing and sanitizing practices that we have. Students were washing their hands regularly before snack, after snack, before lunch, after lunch, and or recess, using hand sanitizer. I mean, we had phrases, sanitize in, sanitize out, so we always knew when we were going in between places that the students were sanitizing. And this kind of flows into the idea that the Department of Public Health is saying that the best practices for sanitization is hand washing and cleaning with soap and water. That's what we were doing at the end of the year, and we'll continue to do this year. Our teachers created schedules for when our students knew they would need to use hand sanitizer or wash their hands. Students and staff were doing it as soon as they entered the building. It was all of our entrances had hand sanitizing stations. So we're going to continue to do everything we can to make sure we're mitigating as much of COVID-19 in our school. So I alluded to recess before, and this was one of the questions that was definitely in the FAQ document. Last year, for our recess waves, our classes stayed in stations. So one of our kindergarten classes was in on the orange playscape, another one was on the swings and the blacktop, and so on. They rotated every day. This year, we're going to allow students to intermingle during recess, and I'm going to come back to the potting idea, but that fits in the guidance that we're getting from the state and our ledger plan that we cohort by grade level and then by class and then by pod. And again, masks can be off outside except in those contained areas that I indicated before. So last year we implemented Seesaw and Google Classroom. Many of our teachers were already using those platforms as a communication tool and instructional pathway for our remote learners and our in-person learners as they switched between. We're going to continue to use those along with email as primary forms of communication between home and school. Something to point out is as students, or if a student is quarantined or in isolation, the students will be provided work by the teacher. So this will be done. In the past, you know, all the work was on these platforms, meaning Seesaw and Google Classroom. Because we are not offering a remote, a virtual option, our teachers are not continuing to post all of this work on these platforms as they did last year. So if a student goes into quarantine, if a student goes into isolation, there'll be a partnership worked out between home and school about what would be best way for the student to maintain some of the learning while they're absent from school. There will not be any synchronous learning. You know, in the past, if a student was in quarantine for 10 days, the teacher was holding multiple Google Meets throughout the day. Toward the end of the year, the district supported virtual teachers at every grade level, solely committed and devoted to our opt-out and our remote learners. So at this time, we are just going to, if a student is out during that quarantine period, we are going to figure out what's the best way for the student to keep up with the work while they're out. And it'll really be something that, you know, it might look different for our 5th grade versus our kindergarten, because our 5th grade classrooms, they are using Google Classroom already. So, you know, the asynchronous learning could still happen through Google Classroom, but there will not be any synchronous instruction like there was last year. A couple people joined after I started. Just please note, if you have questions, please put it in the chat. And we are also recording. Like we said, we want to make sure we can send this out afterwards. So I'm not gonna read too much verbatim, but these are important pieces. So Ledger Public Schools will maximize social distancing to the greatest extent practical during the 21-22 school year. It should not be expected that students will be able to maintain distancing at all times. To give you a sense of what that actually looks like in our classrooms, you can see a 2nd grade and a 4th grade classroom pictured here. We are keeping our students in those pods. So again, we're cohorting initially by grade level, you know, keeping our students together with their grade level peers. and then we go down to the classroom level and then a pod. And to explain that a little bit better, I'm going to go back to the previous slide because you can see how these teachers have set up their classroom spaces. That, in effect, those tables, in effect, would be their pod. And those pods would stick together when they're inside. So when they go in, they're in the classroom, when they're in art, library, music, or they go to the cafeteria for lunch, that's who they're going to be sitting with. And that allows us for an more efficient way to organize our students when they're traveling between spaces. It also allows us a much more efficient way to contact trace if there is a positive case in our school. So something that's going to happen the first day of school and every day is our arrival and drop-off procedures. So we are continuing the practices that we did last year, that we implemented last year. We only got better as the year went on. We got more efficient. The cooperation from all of our families made that much more efficient. So we really appreciate everybody's cooperation. This parallels with the fact that we are restricting visitors to our school. We also found that this was a way for us to feel like we were instituting safer practices during these high vulnerability times, or the transition. So the doors will open at 8:10. Students, buses will open their doors. They'll unload starting at 8:10, and then families can drop off in the car line beginning at 8:10. And as we did yesterday, everyone is to enter through the 214 exit, entering by the along Crandall Field, by the middle school. And then it's important to point out, if you have students who only students going to Gales Ferry School, there's a back entrance by the kindergarten classrooms that faces the middle school. That's a turn-in that you would drop off there. If you have a kindergartner and a second grader, only Gales Ferry students, you pull through there, drop off, and head right back out the way you came. If you have students in both buildings, so you have a first grader and a fourth grader, you're going to continue along Crandall Field, and you're going to drop off in the front of both buildings. So there'll be staff in front of Gales Ferry. You unload there, and then you continue on to Juliet Long, and then exit out to Route 12. So, we had a great turnout for our kindergarten meet and greet, and we really appreciate that. A good question came up. What will that be like? When families are dropping off. We're going to have a whole contingency of staff outside to make sure students get out of their car and into the building okay, to make sure students get off the bus and into the building. And on our first days, we're going to have, every staff member available to make sure they get to their classroom. Mr. Nursky, yeah, this is a good clarifying point. So the doors open at 8:10. The day, technically, the academic day starts at 8:25. So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I apologize if I confused anybody. That 15-minute transition time is to make sure everybody can get in the building. Students have breakfast, can start a breakfast early before the instructional day starts. So doors open at 8:10, but the academic portion of the day does start at 8:25. Thanks for that. Our amazing art teacher put these maps together, so thanks, Mrs. David. So some things that we learned from that last year: we do not want you to arrive before 8 o'clock. Outside my office, I would see cars start queuing up around 7:30 in the morning to be the first one to drop off. And there's a number of reasons that this causes congestion and this causes additional problems. Um, we still need to have staff able to park. We share a campus to some degree with our middle school, and they still have staff, they still have buses, they still have um, outside visitors coming, and that has caused congestion and it's blocked traffic. And it's made other people late for their obligations. We also, both our campuses, the middle school and Gales Ferry, are also hubs, drop-off and pickup hubs for the magnet school. And there's been times that those families can't get to that. So we're really asking for families to not arrive before 8 o'clock. It's, you know, the wait time is not improved. We have actually seen both in the beginning and the end of our days, if people show up closer to the time, it moves us forward it keeps the line moving. So we're really asking for parents and families to consider that. We acknowledge that students are ready to go. You know, we make a big deal that students have their backpacks on and they have their masks on, and that is going to be the most efficient way for them to get out of the car and keep our car line moving. So we give out our PAWs, our little certificates of recognition to those students because that's what's going to keep our car line moving. A queue that's, 40, 50 cars is going to cause problems and frustration. So, like I said, doors will open at 8:10. Academic day starts at 8:25. I'm not going to play the video, but we have some staff members who acted it out, so you can see the route for arrival and drop off in the morning. So something else in addition to the extended day that's a change in our schedule is that we are instituting a 4-day rotation for our specials. Typically, not typically, over the past few years, our students had specials 4 days a week. So there was 1 day a week where they did not have special. We are now doing an ABC day rotation. So special students have special every day. It's a way for us to maximize our students' opportunity to learn the arts, to enjoy teachers that they have great bonds with, that they know for many, many years. So just to make sure I'm being clear, so let's take a typical 5-day week. On Monday, an A day, the first grade class will have PE. Tuesday, a B day. They'll have art, C day. They have library and D day. They have music. On Friday, we restart our rotation, A day, so they'll have PE. We've kind of mapped this out for the entire year, and this rotation allows for a much more equitable number of specials classes for each class. Typically, those students who had, PE on Monday, with all the holidays, they had 6 or 7 fewer PE classes. And then you throw in a snow day or some kind of event. So we're looking forward to this. We know that this is going to be a change. So we're going to find every way we can to communicate this with students, with our staff, because it's new for us. So we're going to learn and see how it goes. And for you as well. We're going to post this everywhere that we can. It'll be on our school website. It will be in the office, or be in our classrooms. It will be in our daily, our morning announcements. It's going to be in the school entrances. So I think that someone shared that the science is you have to see it 5 times before you actually see it. So we're going to find all the ways that we can put it out there for everybody to know what day. And I think any parent or guardian or caregiver for an elementary school student at any age could ask, well, what special did you have yesterday? Oh, I had PE. So what do you have after PE? Well, I always have art. They're going to know the rotation, and we're gonna make it sure that they know their rotation, what day it is. Something to note is when we have a no school day because of snow, we are going to pick up the rotation on the next day. So we're going to see how this goes. We're going to learn from our successes and our trials and errors. So again, an example, if we miss Tuesday and Tuesday's a B day, because of snow, we'll pick up the B day on Wednesday. So we're going to see how that goes. So due to the waiver from the state of Connecticut and the federal government, we just put questions in the chat because that way I can capture it and make sure I put it on there, put it out there during the meeting and then afterwards. So the state of Connecticut and the federal government has continued with the waiver that allows us to offer free and breakfast to each and every student, free breakfast and lunch to each and every student, at least through December 31st. So this is going to continue to be offered. Something that's a change for us that we've been waiting to do for 2 years is to operate our lunch and breakfast kitchen at Juliet Long, which is attached to the cafeteria. This was built in the winter of 2020, and then the pandemic hit, so we did not get to use this. So this year we are going to open our lunch line in the cafeteria. We're going to be continuing to use the same menu that was shared, and that's on the district website. So our students will, have their main choice and their alternate choice. So our students will be going through the lunch line every day. We're going to share the choices for the day in our morning announcements. So our teachers are tuning in to making sure our students know when they go through that line, they know what they might be asked. And in our cafeteria, we are going to continue to use the plastic shields that we started to use at any time that we started to use at the end of the last year. So, and then we'll continue with our sanitization practices. Our students and our staff going through the lunch line is a new practice for us. So we're on our very first day. Each class is going to go to the cafeteria before we actually start our official lunch waves, and they're going to go through the motions. We're working with our food services provider, Chartwells. The head chef, Nizam, has agreed that we want to practice this so our students feel comfortable and our staff too. So we're going to walk the students through the lunch line with an empty tray and pantomime getting your main meal, getting your fruit and veggie, getting your drink, and getting right to their table. And then they're going to be in the cafeteria for lunch. So breakfast is going to be offered every day. That will be done in the classroom, similar to what we did last year for the majority of the year, is that Chartwells delivered food to the classroom. So students will be offered the opportunity to have breakfast so that they're properly fueled for the day. Just so parents and family members and guardians and caregivers at home, so that we're all on the same page. We want to make sure that we have your permission and understanding that your child should be eating breakfast. So my oldest, who's, in high school now, but if he had a chance to eat a second breakfast after the one we give him at home, he would not hesitate. But we want to make sure that that's something that you want. So we are going to ask our teachers to send out a document, a Google form for every parent to fill out, just to let us know whether or not you want your child to have breakfast, because there are our Chartwell's folks are going to provide enough breakfast for every student in there in the beginning, but we want to make sure you want your student to have a second breakfast, to have a chocolate chip muffin because it looks good and because their friends are having one. So please look for that Google form. And we ask that you have a conversation with your child about what you want them to do, and we're going to support that. If you don't want them to have, uh, pancakes with syrup after you've given them eggs for breakfast at home, please let them know. Um, because those pancakes can look very appetizing. So Ms. Chappelle, she put a question or a suggestion. I know our teachers have already been thinking about this as well. Anytime the kids have gym, maybe the teachers can remind the kids to wear sneakers the next day. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I know our teachers have already mentioned something about that as well. We also send out the breakfast and lunch menu, so you're well aware of it before the start of each month. You can also find it on the Ledyard homepage, our school's homepage, in the food services area. So lots of opportunities for you to have a conversation about what food choices at school with your students. We also want to give you a heads up. We have Megan asked the question, if you've already filled out the pre-order form for breakfast, would you still like us to fill out the Google form that the teachers will be sending home? Yeah, we would like that. That's helpful. It's going to populate for the teachers, so they have their own record, the way that's going to come out, so they'll have their own list. Where that pre-order form is something that goes to Chartwell's instead of the classroom teacher. So good question, Megan. Thank you. I appreciate that. So last year, Mrs. Leaf, one of our school nurses, was with us towards the end of the year, but she is now officially ours, and as well as Mrs. Sostry. So those would be two resources for us in school, two people your students might be talking about, as we did last year, to minimize the traffic to and from the nurses, to and from in the hallways, and any chances that there might be an illness in the nurse. We don't want to necessarily put students in this situation. So our teachers are going to be handling minor issues as best as they can, to try to keep the nurses' space as open as possible. So in case there's any kind of illness, whether it's COVID or a seasonal flu, so we have some guidelines about what we do. Say, okay, this is something that the teacher can handle, or is this something that the nurse needs to be involved? And all of our teachers know, when in doubt, send the call, or if it's emergency, we still send our students to the nurse or get help from the nurse as soon as possible. If you have a child that's exhibiting any kind of symptoms, please, we encourage you to call our school nurses, and they can talk you through any situation. And we're lucky to have them, because they know our students. So at the end of the day, our school day ends at 325. Last year and previously it was 310. We are going to begin our student dismissal procedures for picking up students. All of our students, same as we did last year, all students are going to dismiss from Gales Ferry by Crandall Field. So the flagpole turn in, that's where you'll turn in to pick up your child. So it's not reflected necessarily on this map, but what we did institute at the end of last year is that we asked families to line up through in the middle school south lot, and that worked out really, really well because when we started this procedure, we had cars lining up on 214, which was unsafe and it was causing traffic problems for a lot of people. So there is a brief video that's attached to this that we encourage you to watch. It shows where to line up, and right around 325, a staff member will signal that first car to pull through, and then line up in the flagpole area, and we'll bring students out to you. And then that also allows our buses to leave the campus from a different route. So Mrs. Snowberger asked the question, for breakfast and lunch, there is no longer monthly pre-ordering. Is that correct? That is what Chartwells is telling us to do. We didn't want to release that information and confuse folks. So if you've already done a pre-order, thank you very much. That's actually going to be really helpful for us to get a sense of the number of students that are going to actually purchase, or not purchase, excuse me, that are actually going to take breakfast and or lunch. So if you already did that, no harm done. That actually helps us predict, and we're going to see how that goes. Currently, our plan for visitors is we are restricting visitors during the school day. By law, we have to offer an opportunity for any parent who's attending a meeting, a student meeting, like a planning and placement team meeting, for their student who's receiving special education services in person. But we are going to continue to hold meetings virtually, and we are going to restrict visitors during the school day. So like we did last year, if you student dropped off their lunch, forgot to bring in their lunch with them, or their homework, we'll have a table out front following those same procedures. You drop it off, sign, and we'll have someone get it out to them. It's a way for us to mitigate and limit exposure. So right now, for our back to school nights, we are minimizing visitors in the building. So it is going to be an adult only event. And again, it's an unfortunate reality because some of the best parts of back to school night, I know, are like your students getting to show you their classroom and introduce you to their teacher like they're a celebrity and like you're a celebrity. So it's a challenge, but it's something that, you know, over time we'll go back to the way maybe we've been doing things. We have a new picture vendor. We have used LifeTouch for many years, but now we are switching to Legacy Studios. Our picture day is October 1st, and it's going to be online ordering. If someone wants paper ordering, we can definitely provide it, but Legacy Studios really is going to give families an option to customize their packets. So look for the QR codes that they're going to be sending out when we get closer. We're excited about this because of the level of customer service that we are thinking is going to come with Legacy Studios. So more information to be released about that. And as I come to the end of what I have to share. We're excited to see students the first day of school on Thursday, and we look forward to a great year. Um, we have a little bit of time. If anybody wants to ask questions, if anybody has questions, they can, raise their hand or unmute, or you can put them in the chat. Go ahead, Mrs. Chappelle.
I'm sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself. Um, I was just curious. My daughter received an email saying her classroom is going to be nut free. Um, but my son was in a classroom with somebody with a peanut allergy, and his classroom wasn't nut free. I was just wondering, is it the difference between JWL and Gills Ferry, or?
I'm going to be cautious and not necessarily, I don't want to identify anybody. Um, it's dependent on the situation, so it's also about the severity of the allergy.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if like the younger kids tend to share more, and
No,
that's why
it's different without any kind of medical degree. It's if a student might have a nut allergy that's only due to ingesting versus any type of exposure. So
okay.
it really depends. But that's a very fair question, so I appreciate it. Not as a, ooh, good question. Will we get new student numbers? Oh, I meant to do that. So the question is, will we get new student numbers for parent pickup? So for our families that might be new to Gales Ferry Juliet Long, um, in our car line, we assign a number. That way we can create a list in order of students to come out to meet the cars. So your first day, you get assigned a number. Susie is getting picked up by mom. We give mom a number, 201, and that way we know whenever we see the list 201, that's Susie, and Susie lines up. Last year we did sticker decals on the windows. This year we're going to give you a hanging placard for your rear view mirror. So if you were number 201 last year, you're going to keep that number. We're just going to give you something different. We have ordered additional ones, so each family can have two. They're coming. So right now you're going to have one, but we'll give you this. You'll get them the first day or the next day. So bear with us as we dole those out. But this is a lifetime subscription to the or 6-year subscription to the car line. But look for this. Good question. Thank you. And on that kind of transportation vein, bus routes continue to be updated on the Ledyard Public School District homepage. If you scroll down to the bottom, there is a blue box that says bus routes. Click on that and make sure you know that there's a separate link for Gales Ferry Juliet Long morning AM rides and the afternoon rides. And something that's been throwing people is, when they read that list, it says GFS JWL 10A. The 10 is the bus number and the A is AM. So that's a way to read that list, and you can look for the bus pickup or drop off spot closest to your address. But that list continues to be modified as we adjust our bus routes, as our bus company gets new information, new registrations. Rebecca asks if students are normally bus riders but need to be a parent pickup on a certain day. Do we just join pickup line or need to pick up beforehand? Nope, you can just join the pickup line. And if you don't have a number, we're going to issue you a number. It might take a day or two to get the tag to you, but we're going to give you a number. And that way, like I said, you're, 6-year, 7-year, 10-year, you've got that number, and we'll associate that with your family, so we'll facilitate. If you let us know ahead of time, that always helps. Something that we ask, so thank you for that question. That's a good one. It couldn't hurt if you let us know beforehand, but you can just join the line and actually, as I talk this out, you would need to let us know beforehand so we can make sure they get into the parent pickup line. So that would be some kind of communication to the teacher, to the school. And we ask that that communication happen before 2:55, before 3 o'clock, because that time gets very busy trying to communicate all those things to classroom teachers. So let me go back and answer that a little more succinctly. I apologize, Rebecca. So if your child is getting a transportation change, like they're normally bus riders and they need to be a parent pickup, please call school so we can let the teacher know, so we get them to the parent pickup line. And then when you show up, just jump in the car line and we'll bring them to you. Even if you don't have a number, we'll give you a number, and we'll make sure we get them out to your car. I think someone, hold on, Mrs. Chappelle and then Mrs. Leckie. Go ahead, Mrs. Chappelle.
I'm sorry, that was an accident.
Oh. Mrs. Leckie.
Hi there. I'm so sorry. I was picking kids up from sports, so I missed the part you said about the lunch line.
Sure.
Would it, with obviously none of them have gone through a lunch line before, but when like the kindergartners are going through the lunch line, would there be someone helping them, telling them what the foods are, or like they won't be like putting the food on their trays themselves, right? It would be like the employee doing it.
That's correct. So there's a couple points that you bring up, and I'll restate it just because I know you were not the only one who joined afterwards. So first off, it's all new for all of our students from kindergarten through 5th grade, and it's new for our staff. So we're going to practice it the first day of school. Just each class is going to walk through and go through pantomiming that they're getting their lunches and then going to their cafeteria table. So they're going to get used to the process before it gets real. It is going to be the Chartwell staff that's serving them, so not the students themselves. I lost my train of thought. Oh, and we are going to really make sure that in the classrooms before lunch, our teachers communicate to the students, these are the two things. So we ask the two choices, the main meal and then the alternative. So we ask that our families make sure that you have a conversation. And I think that was all the parts of your question. And our teachers and our lunch room monitors will be with their classes as they go through. So there will be someone, and I think we are concerned about our youngest students going through there. Gallup has been working from a lunch line, and they can do it. So we're confident we'll be able to do it. Anna asked, I hope I answered all parts of your question, Mrs. Leckie. So if not, make sure you ask the other part. How many grades will be eating lunch in the cafeteria at once? Right now we have 2 grades in there. Based on what we were able to do last year, we can space out the tables, maximize the space, so we'll keep classes together in the students sitting in pods in their classes in a space, and then have them distance as best as possible from the other classes. We have kindergarten and third grade as one lunch wave, and we're doing that pattern. I think it's off the top of my head, I think it's first and fourth or first and fifth together, and then second and the other. And that allows us to get those older students through, so the lunch lines before the younger students from GFS get over there and make it more efficient. And we're hoping that we can use our older students as models, peer models, but oftentimes we can say, man, our kindergartners know how to do it, so third graders, you should remember as well. And it won't go up without hiccups, but we'll make it better. And Chartwells is committed to making sure that it goes well. And from the Chartwells team, from the head chef, he is excited because he believes strongly that the quality of the food will be much better compared to the prepackaged food that he was obligated to serve last year. So he's excited. He's excited to give a wider variety of food. Well, oh, Rebecca.
So I just have a question about when the kids arrive to school. I think they used to go into the gym and meet their classes and then go to their classroom.
Right.
But I don't think that happened last year. So how do they know where their new classroom is?
What we did last year is any staff member who is available is just going to line the hallway, and we're just going to keep them. We gave them class lists, and we're just going to keep our students moving down the hall till they get to their class. We did the same process last year, so it really was a little bit of trial and error, and all hands on deck. And last year, at the very end of the year, I'm not sure all grades, but a number of the grades did walk over to their, that went from Gales Ferry, the second graders going to third grade, they did walk over and take a tour of Juliet Long. Kevin asked, what is the process of the kids finding their classrooms on the first day? I think I covered that. We'll get them there. Our staff, like I said, our staff will be, our staff will have class lists to make sure they know. Megan asked, my son is new to school and will be taking the bus on the first day. Should I be putting a name tag on him or something? You could do that. That's definitely a possibility. Our kindergarten students should have gotten a name tag from their kindergarten teacher. We'll get them there. A name tag is a great idea. Yeah, that's a great one. Keep practicing with your students, their teacher's name, so they know. Thank you. Sounds like you're being proactive. We appreciate that. Well, Rebecca, I'm going to take that and I'm going to run with it. We are looking forward to a great year as well. We're always looking forward to the first day. It's not the school is not the same without the students. Our teachers, even before they have to be here, have been working very hard to set up their classrooms to make it the best first day, the best school year possible. So we're committed. If you have any questions, as always, reach out to your child's teachers. They are the first line of communication because they understand your child and the best. But feel free to reach out to me or any of our school staff, and we're happy to help. Thank you all for coming, and have a great night and a wonderful school year.